If I could send one message to the open cage corporations, would be open cage salmon farming is over. It's a dead industry walking. Morally, it never really had a future anyway. It's raised a whole load of issues as well in terms of these huge corporations taking on tiny communities and essentially steamrolling development and making it happen for their own benefit, and the communities seeing nothing but pollution and damage.
Yeah, we weren't actually obliged to tell you.
Look, you weren't obliged to record.
Oh my God!
Communities have a voice in this. I'm Corin Smith, salmon farm campaigner and investigator. I first started looking at salmon farming because of concerns that I'd heard about the impacts it was having on mainly wild fish, but also the wider environment. And I decided to go and document that. And then since then, it's become really obvious that there are massive problems with this industry in any number of levels, and that it doesn't really have a future.
I'm Rachel Morenan. I'm the Scotland Director for Wild Fish, so I run all of our anti-salmon farming campaigns in Scotland.
My name is Matt Palmer. I'm a former salmon farming vet, and I saw firsthand the animal welfare issues, the environmental issues that open-net salmon farming has. So I wanted to use that experience and expertise to raise awareness and to call on people to not eat farmed salmon and to push for more sustainable food production systems.
So we are in Ullapool in northwest Scotland, and this evening we're having a community event to talk about the issues with salmon farming that we've been seeing across the last 3 decades and discuss what comes next for Scotland.
A lot of people around me don't know what's going on, especially here where you would think, oh, everyone must know what's going on in school. We don't. A lot of people around us have no idea. And I just think that education for young people about this kind of thing would have a big impact, and visually seeing what's happening, how it's affecting them, would have a big impact, and it's just not being addressed enough.
Good, I agree, yeah, good point.
I've spent a lot of time on the water around Scotland. I've paddled around the whole coast of Scotland, and time again, I come across fish farms. As a vet, I have a particular interest in animal welfare. Those salmon's experiences within a fish farm are not conducive to good animal welfare. It's as simple as that.
The salmon, by its very nature, is a migratory species. They are a part of the rivers as much as a part of the sea. Once you put them in a cage, you've taken all that away from them. It's a tragedy for the salmon.
It horrifies me that they can be given the label of being welfare-friendly farming practices when they're just not.
What is not a good story is the story of the pollution from fish farming. I think that's something that's out of sight and out of mind. If people could actually see what's happening under the fish farms, they would be a lot more concerned.
I'm Lucy, and I live at Blackmore Farm opposite the salmon farm. And as a farmer, I produce livestock, and I don't have licence to put unmitigated waste with no consequence onto the land or at sea. So I think all farmers should be treated in the same way.
Here. Yeah, Janice?
I've just checked with these guys, and there's still salmon on the school dinner menu. And on your statistics up there was a lot of salmon being eaten by children who have no say in it. And it's not just about feeding them this toxic food, which is wrong, obviously, but there's also an element of normalization going on there. It becomes normal to eat fish, which is good. Fish is healthy, right? But this is farmed salmon, and they're not given any kind of education, like Arwen was saying. There needs to be education around how harmful this is.
Yeah. Food Standards Scotland will say, in inverted commas, oily fish, because they won't say farmed salmon. And there are consumption guidelines, particularly for women, girls, children, anyone who might have children in the future. And the reason for that is because of PCB and dioxin levels that are found in farmed salmon. They're toxins that the body can't process, and they build up and they cause health issues.
So since having a very close encounter with orca, I have gone into a bit of a deep dive learning about what threats they face. One of the biggest threats to orca is persistent chemicals like PCBs, And that has resulted in many of the female orca being unable to carry young and to give birth, and the death of lots of orca around the world, not just in Scotland.
Those chemicals they're pouring on to stop the lice, those are poison for crustacean. Now, the main fishing here is prawns. You know, crabs, lobsters, they're all getting nailed by that chemical, and there's going to be a hell of a lot more of it going into the loch with a much bigger operation.
But salmon farming is a good deal for some people, make no mistake. There is a whole pile of money getting made. It's just not a lot of it is hanging around here. You can see the numbers. This is what essentially Maui pays in Scotland or paid in 2017. This is what salmon farming companies pay us as a nation to lease the seabed from us in order to run their business. A business operating anywhere in Scotland, if you're a tenant farmer, your rent that you're paying your landlord is not 0.2%. So the deal that the Scottish Government has struck with the industry, where it's allowed to pay 0.2%, is a tiny fraction of what it should be paying to lease our seabeds. It should be 10 times that.
We're prioritising short-term gain from a financial point of view, which actually a lot of the finances aren't seen by Scotland and by Scottish people, for the sake of the degradation of our natural environment, which benefits every single person in Scotland. I completely understand that there's a need for jobs, but the actual jobs that are created from fish farms are at the expense of so many other jobs that are much more conducive to a healthier planet and a healthier population overall.
I think a large issue within the community is it's a community so built on fishing, but at all our careers fairs, the only form of sea-based careers that gets promoted to the whole younger peer group of the high school is fish farms.
Yeah.
That's the only stall, and I think that's such a big issue within our community.
Little red rectangle to scale against the big grey background represents the number of salmon farming jobs in the Highlands and Islands. These are the number of jobs on salmon farms. Now, these aren't my numbers. These are the numbers that the salmon farmers themselves offer.
So then you think about, well, how many people are you actually employing directly from the local community onto the farms, and how many are students that are coming up from Glasgow, Stirling, whatever else, because they can't get a job in marine biology anywhere else. Like, it's kind of benefiting those students and I guess getting them some kind of experience on their CV, but like how it's big companies that are just getting other students from elsewhere, and how much is that directly coming back to the community itself?
The salmon farming industry is, like, it tries to present itself as farmers for a start, but like as sort of quaint little organisations. But they're massive corporations. Like, we're not talking about swapping massive corporations for massive corporations, right?
No.
We're talking about
SMEs, small to medium
Stewardship
enterprises.
for the local communities and allowing them to actually utilise their local marine space.
So even if it was worth a tenth of salmon farming, because all the revenues stay here, it could still be worth more ultimately to the local area, right?
Yeah.
The fact that you've raised about the levies for the Crown Estate, I mean, that is the basis of this, in my view. The whole set of government priorities is just skewed in completely the wrong direction. The reason why everyone wants and puts money in salmon farming is you can create a supposedly dependable return. And while capture fisheries are much more complicated to manage, they require more regulation, more legislation. You know, if we spent a lot more time better managing our wild fish stocks, that is the opportunity we are missing right now. Government is looking all about salmon farming. If we spend that same money and time and effort in regulating our wild capture fisheries better, we would be generating more money, you know, for our local communities.
Yeah.
It's raised a whole load of issues to do with communities being able to have a proper say, development happening that they don't want, and being completely disenfranchised from the wealth that's being created.
I'm worried. I'm frightened, actually, to be honest. The scale of the operation is growing before our eyes, exponentially as far as I can tell. People who have never really had a problem with fish farming before are starting to look at it and thinking, that's a lot. And it's coming in, and it's coming in hard and fast. You just see these vast Norwegian boats, and the amount of money is just sort of quite mind-boggling. But wherever you go, all the sort of little inlets and places have got bits of fish farm abandoned there.
Like this? It is fish farm pipes, what they use to feed their fish. It's not good because as you can see, it just breaks off and gets washed up here. So, yeah.
That's one thing that seems to have become fairly uncontrolled development.
I'm Leslie, and I live right opposite the salmon farm. Westeros, with their hand feeding, were far less intrusive in our lives than Maui have been since they've taken it over. The well boats are our biggest bugbear. They can roll up at 11 o'clock at night and not leave till 3. And it's like having a helicopter right outside your bedroom window.
Okay.
And you get roving lights that go backwards and forwards across your bedroom.
Wow.
You know, it's awful. And in the latest application for a bead barge, they're saying that well boats will only operate for 20 days a year. So therefore it's acceptable because it's not a nuisance. It's a nuisance to me,
yeah,
and my immediate neighbours as well.
Okay.
So it's been very difficult.
The view out my bedroom window at the moment is during the night, it's all lit up in green because they say they're lighting it for the fish's welfare, but, you know, they're lighting it to manipulate the fish's maturation so that its energy goes into flesh. So this is all about money, not about welfare.
Yeah.
And during the day at the moment, we can just hear power blasting from cannons feeding fish, which is preferable to a whaleboat, I might add, which they're also trying to do.
Yeah, okay. So Maui bought the farm, or bought this company. They came in and said, we're going to clean up the farm and put a new metal, aluminium farm in, but we're not going to put a feed barge in. And now, what is it? Wasn't even a matter of months, and they
No, it was
sort of
last
changed
October.
Right.
Staff from Westeros, which is Maui, so they can't
Yeah.
keep saying it wasn't us, came out and to, I think, probably 4 households of us all grouped together and said we will not be putting in a feed barge.
Right, and now they are putting in
Yeah.
a massive one. Or they're trying
They're
to.
trying to.
Yeah, okay. I know it's overwhelming. I know it's difficult to keep the motivation up. Everything we do, it can often feel kind of microscopic and minuscule and it doesn't really make a difference, but it does all add up. The efforts you make today are worth making. You never know when they're going to come back and be positive. If we want a particular future, we need to take responsibility for that and make that happen and start having these conversations. And that's, in a large part, what this meeting is about. You know, we cannot abdicate that responsibility entirely to the Scottish Government. And I think there's lots of opportunity to take control of our own destiny. The public consultation down the way being a good example.
I've got a lot of questions. We live above it, and it's really intrusive. We didn't mind when it was hand feeding, but I mean, I audited fish farms for a long time. I know exactly how noisy feed barges are. I mean, you don't often see a feed barge that close to houses.
What's our message now? We're not going down without a fight.
So what we're really here to talk about today is the introduction of a feed barge. We just want to be very clear that the application for the barge is not affecting other parts of the farm.
I'm sorry, but can I just say something already? When you made the application for the new pen group, they said there would not be other changes like this one. So with this one, what is there to stop you just making further changes?
If I was in that position now, if I was at that meeting, I wouldn't have said it was not going to happen. As an individual, I wouldn't have said that. With each application, you are presented with the information and you have the opportunity to comment, and then a decision is made on whether...
So if we had all known that getting bigger pens, because you couldn't have used a feed barge on the little wooden pens you had, if we'd all known that this would result in you then applying for a feed barge, then maybe we'd all have objected to the pen change full stop.
An organisation, did you know from the application for the new pens that you were always going to put in a new feed barge? And if you did know that, why didn't you tell the community that at that point in time?
I don't know the time scale for it. I'll hold my hands up. The pens need we wanted the pens to go in first. That was the most important thing for us.
But you always knew that when you were putting those pens in, that you were going to bring a large feed barge to the site at that point, when you made that application. Did you or did you not know that you were going to bring a feed barge as an organisation at that point?
Yes, we did.
You did, but you didn't tell the community then.
Yeah, we weren't actually obliged to tell.
Right, you weren't obliged to report.
Oh my God! There's a lot of distrust. There's a lot that has apparently been said at one meeting that now we're hearing something else today. There is a lot of concern about the environmental impacts as well. So my question isn't even necessarily for you guys, it's for everybody here to steal the idea from earlier. Can you put your hand up if you don't want this feed barge to come into your waters? I think that should be noted as strength of feeling that this isn't something that's... How many people do want it?
Do you care that we all don't want the feed barge?
A group of our children, you've probably heard of them, Sea Saver, and they're walking up and down picking up plastic, tons of it. And you're standing here telling us that your improvement is going to put more in. That's where the strength of feeling comes from. It's pretty hard to swallow.
It can feel like you're in a pressure cooker, like it's all happening here, it's all about us, it's all on us to make change, and it can feel very overwhelming. But one of the reasons we're here is to say to the local community, you know, you're not on your own.
So at Wildfish, we have been campaigning for probably 2 decades to try and curb the negative impacts of the salmon farming industry in Scotland.
It's about education, and it's about opening up these discussions around the real reality. So it's taking the narrative away from what we're being told by the Scottish Government, what we're being told by these multinational corporations about, you know, the claims of sustainability, claims of pristine lochs, etc. And we're showing them the real reality in terms of what's happening underneath the water and the impacts of picking up that pack of salmon from the supermarket or serving it in the restaurant. So it's empowering people with the information to really make the decisions for themselves and ultimately, you know, use the power of what they're consuming to push towards ending open net salmon farming and pushing for more sustainable alternatives within our communities and within our food systems as well.
Open cage salmon farming is coming to an end. It is ending. It doesn't matter how much the government wants to prop it up, having failed to achieve what they wanted to. They need to wake up to the reality, and they need to manage the transition away as the industry starts to fail. They have a responsibility to the people who work on salmon farms. They have a responsibility to make sure that those people are not abandoned, which they will be if it's left to people like Maui who have, you know, 10, 20 times their operation in Norway. You know, Scotland is just an outlier. When it's time for Maui to pull up stumps, they'll pull them up and take off. We have opportunities to encourage the Scottish Government to divert the funding that has been pushed into salmon farming over the years into other areas, to invest in industries that are genuinely sustainable and will offer us opportunity for generations to come, to create jobs for all of us and for local communities that don't require us to destroy the places where we live. We do have a bright future to look forward to, but we're going to have to work to make that happen, and there's still a lot of damage to be done. So keep pushing to make change happen as fast as possible.
We are the Liverpool Sea Savers!
It feels a lot better to be on the side of history where you're fighting for something rather than when you grow up and your kids ask you what you were doing and you say you kept your head down and ignored it. And if you give up hope, then you will never know.
Doing what we're doing, hopefully we can make a positive difference, but if more people don't step up to the challenge and help us, then it might not work how we want it to.
Why am I in this? And I'm in it because I want to be able to walk on clean beaches with my little girl in 15 years' time. And I want to protect those places. I want to protect those memories and experiences for my kid and for other kids. We'll be here to help. So keep going and fight for what you want. We are winning. We are forcing the industry back. We're going to win in the end.